Meiman, Weaving Myths, starting from urban legends. Chapter 1. The United States. New York. Located in the most mysterious department in the city, Chu Mu, a senior fishing expert, is using his agent skills to carry out part-time activities as a yellow appraiser while paying attention to the movements of the office supervisor. Thanks to the high network authority of the computers in the department, Chu Mu can easily browse various paid websites, including some door-to-door service platforms on the dark web. The girl in this photo is really amazing. It can be used as a modeling material for Girl with Gap. Chu Mu is different from many old drivers who use this type of platform. He doesn't care whether these websites are suspected of false marketing. His eyes and attention are always on the photos and videos used for publicity on these websites. It is impossible to place an order. The salary of Shield employees is less than $8,000 a month, and they can't afford the high-quality girls' door-to-door service, let alone Chu Mu's appearance, and there is no need to make friends with women in this way. As long as you take a step into the nightclub with your legs, Chu Mu, who has a handsome body and looks at the sense of substitution, can completely use the buffet method of choosing a concubine to find a bed partner for him. There is no other reason why Chu Mu now uses working hours to browse websites that affect health. In the final analysis, Chu Mu's travel benefits need some beautiful modeling materials. Yes, travel through benefits. Not so long ago Chu Mu was not yet a resident of this universe. He is a true traveler. A soul wearer from another universe. At that time, Chu Mu was not an agent in a related department, but a two-dimensional illustrator who could be called a freelancer. If I have money, I will, Yuenshin, start, every day. If I have no money, I will take on illustration tasks. My life can be regarded as very nourishing. Occasionally, I can earn an extra hard-earned money when I meet some customers with special requirements. However, such a beautiful life, after all, could not last a lifetime. As the PPT's artificial intelligence exploded, he immediately lost his well-paid job. Machines will eventually replace humans. Chu Mu has always understood this truth. Only, he never imagined that the industry he was in would be the first to be replaced. When I saw a picture that took me several days to draw, I could produce hundreds of pictures in a minute in the hands of artificial intelligence. Even the moisturizing feeling required for special part-time jobs was completely exploded by artificial intelligence. Chu Mu knows. I'm probably unemployed. Chu Mu, who borrows alcohol to get drunk, can only drink wine while thinking about his future life, whether he should go to deliver food, or should grit his teeth to experience the steel wool ball. With melancholy and confusion about the future, Chu Mu drank several bottles of snow beer that night. He hoped that after waking up, whatever GTP and PPT would be just a nightmare. How to say? After waking up, Chu Mu did get his wish, but the way he got it was a little different from what he expected. He found that the unemployment crisis caused by artificial intelligence had indeed disappeared, but instead, his original life also changed with artificial intelligence. The crisis of intelligence disappeared altogether. It's here. Although he also has the name Chu Mu, he still looks like an authentic Longguo male god face, but he has a completely different identity and memories of the past. As Chu Mu, who usually reads 2 novels when he has nothing to do, he naturally understands the fact that he has become a time traveler, and he can't tell whether such a time travel is a good thing or not. Maybe it's a good thing. After all, looking at Chu Mu's current status, one can know how many ways a freelance illustrator can turn into a civil servant. Putting aside the situation of having a good father and a good grandfather, apart from studying hard and passing the exam, the easiest way to change the industry is to go through a muddle-headed journey. Definitely. If there is an option. Chu Mu thinks that the world of a building at night will obviously be much better than the current Marvel universe. There is indeed no industrial crisis caused by artificial intelligence in this world. However, this is only temporary. Just thinking about the situation where there will be a crisis of annihilation in the future can send shivers down Chu Mu's spine. Don't say anything else. The Ultron crisis is obviously much more terrifying than the PTT crisis. And even if Chu Mu can hide from Ultron, he can't hide from Thanos' snapping fingers. If there is a choice, even if Chu Mu goes to the street to beg for food, he will definitely not choose to travel to such a universe. The status of a civil servant is very good. But he's a civil servant of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's not a permanent job. Even as an optimist, it took Chu-Mu several days to accept the unavoidable fact that the reason for him to calm down is also inseparable from his time travel benefits. As a member of the army of traversers from the heavens and worlds, Chu-Mu definitely has a gold finger, and it is the most popular system-type gold finger at present. This is his trump card for being able to settle down in the Marvel Universe. At the same time, it is also an excuse for him to legally enter many unhealthy websites on the internet these days by taking advantage of his position. Weaving Mythology System. This is the name of Chu-Mu Goldfinger, which is very simple and direct, and it has the powerful ability to weave illusory fantasies into real things. Chu-Mu can implant his fantasy creations into reality, and then obtain a system currency called Destiny Point, through the influence of fantasy creations on reality. The currency Fate Point allows Chu-Mu to purchase Fantasy Seed in Fate Mall, and use Fate Seed to create more different fantasy creations. Fate Points can also improve fantasy creations that have already been created. However, Destiny Point cannot be directly used to enhance Chu-Mu's strength. By consuming Fate Points, Chu-Mu can only possess the power of fantasy creation for a short period of time. Definitely. It is not that Chu-Mu himself does not have a way to obtain extraordinary power. As long as the fantasy creation is constructed from nothingness by Chu-Mu, then a fantasy sculpture can be born in Chu-Mu's consciousness space. The existence of every fantasy sculpture can continuously produce a rare product called Myth Point. Through Myth Point, Chu-Mu can permanently strengthen and improve himself. The higher the quality and level of fantasy creations, the more Myth Points will naturally be produced. Obviously, there is a virtuous circle between the output of the two system currencies. It's not such a complicated situation. Chu-Mu can probably think of many settings of the Phil Money mobile game. Myth Points is probably a relatively rare currency, while Fate Points is a currency that can be continuously produced by Explosive Liver. I don't know how many Fate Points and Myth Points my first fantasy creation can bring me. Chu-Mu chose a pair of long legs on an unhealthy website with anticipation for the future. Regarding the fantasy creation first implanted in the Marvel Universe, Chu-Mu did not have much room for choice. He also thought for a long time before choosing to tinker with the fantasy creation of the urban legend. After all, if you want to build a powerful fantasy creation, you need a higher quality fantasy seed, and the fantasy seed presented by the system belongs to the lowest quality category. The Novice Gift Pack, you know everything. With no way to add any extraordinary abilities, Chu-Mu felt that urban legends like Gap Girl should be able to cause quite a stir and influence in New York. It's just that I don't know which unlucky person it will be, the first one to be approached by the Gap Girl. In the afternoon, Chu-Mu completely perfected the weaving structure of the Gap Girl. Using the free time after get off work to close the computer and pack up daily necessities, he put it into one of the most chaotic neighborhoods in New York through the system. Clint District. That is the famous Hell's Kitchen. Sir, see you tomorrow. Chu-Mu happily greeted the supervisor of his department, and then, under the somewhat bewildered gaze of Shinsho Village Chief Phil Coulson, walked cheerfully with his satchel on his back, and grabbed the in front of all colleagues in the entire department, completed the routine operation of being the first to get off work. Chu-Mu's mood is actually a little excited now. He is very clear. Tonight's Hell's Kitchen is not destined to be peaceful. And he will also learn from this turmoil to settle down in the dangerous Marvel Universe. Hell's Kitchen. A major attraction in New York. It's just that no tour group will recommend tourists to visit this area, and no tour guide will accept the entrustment of going here to guide work at night. Money and life. Most people know how to choose. Hell's Kitchen is the center of crime in New York. Although there are only 8 small streets, the crimes here claim that even when Jesus came, he had to be stripped clean and crawled out. Walking down the streets of Hell's Kitchen, even in broad daylight, there could be a black dude in a hood at any moment, walk up to you, put his big babe on your back, and say Hell's Kitchen the most classic greeting, brother, lend me some money. This is not. As the unlucky Peter Parker, when he delivered pizza part-time on Friday night and wanted to save some money for his future college tuition, he encountered a kind greeting from the black man in Hell's Kitchen. The money is in my trouser pocket, buddy, do you know it's wrong for you to do this? Feeling the cold touch from his lower back, Peter Parker immediately raised his hands. He didn't want to gamble on whether there were bullets in the black hooded man's gun, and he didn't want to gamble on whether the thing that supported his lower back was just a mobile phone or a piece of wood. Can only say, Peter Parker was scared. Counseling in seconds. It's hard to say whether the reason why the future Peter Parker often visits Hell's Kitchen after becoming a Spider-Man is to find the black man he is today. The current Spider-Man has not yet obtained the extraordinary power of the future. Facing the blatant blackmail of the black man in the hood, Peter facing the persuasion of Peter Parker. The response of the black hooded man was also very quick. You poor high school student, you only have this little money. The black man in the hood counted the money cursingly, and responded to Peter Parker's persuasion with a large pen pocket. Immediately afterwards, the addict took the $26 he had found from Peter to the depths of the dark street. He wondered if he could get himself some laundry detergent for that little money. You can't get high-quality goods for this amount of money. Just as the black hooded man turned a corner and cursed himself for being unlucky today, he saw a woman in a windbreaker in another alley. It was a woman with her back to the man in the black hood, who seemed to be looking for something in the alley. Even with the barrier of the windbreaker and the extremely dim lights at night, the black hooded man can still feel that this woman has an excellent figure that makes him stand on the spot. Yo! Tonight I can still play with such a beautiful girl. When the black hooded man saw the woman in the alley, his eyes lit up immediately, and he began to feel that God must be very kind to him tonight, who had been abusing him in various ways before. Laundry powder is certainly delicious. But a beautiful lady can also relieve his loneliness in the middle of the night. As for whether the other party is willing or not, this has never been an issue that black people in Hell's Kitchen need to consider. Well, most of the active people in Hell's Kitchen will not consider such a naive issue. Law. Morality. Here is bullshit. Hey, chick, do you want to see my brother's big toy? The black hooded man almost didn't have any hesitation, and walked towards the woman in the windbreaker whistling frivolously. There is a gun in hand. There's just no qualms about acting in Hell's Kitchen. I can love and love you well. The black hooded man had a smirk on his face, and his eyes were full of excitement. The closer he got, the more clearly he could see this woman's figure, which was even more coveted than the supermodel on TV. At the moment, the black hooded man was a little reluctant to spoil such a stunner. Come on. Follow me. After the black hooded man approached the woman in the windbreaker, he reached out and wanted to grab the woman's arm in the windbreaker, but at this moment, the woman in the windbreaker suddenly turned around. Do you think I'm beautiful? The voice of the woman in the windbreaker was full of tenderness and charm. Although the pair of lifeless eyes made the black hooded man tremble a little, this voice also made the black hooded man's bones crumble. How to say? It can only be said that the sound materials provided by unhealthy websites are also very powerful. Beautiful. Definitely beautiful. Come. Let my brother taste it. Facing the voice of the woman in the windbreaker, the black man in the hood thought he was meeting a big seobi, and suddenly he was overjoyed and wanted to touch the woman's masked face. This delicate skin. Pinch. It must be very moist. The eyes of the black hooded man are full of excitement and impatience. The tall, long-legged woman in a windbreaker obviously didn't intend to stop the black hooded man from moving his feet. She just smiled softly and let out a soft laugh. So, how about this? Talking. The woman in the windbreaker took off her mask. For just a moment, the air that was originally full of turbulent atmosphere suddenly fell into a state of almost freezing. The black hooded man's salty hands also directly stagnated in midair. The pair of salty pig hands began to tremble. Shaking violently. Almost in the blink of an eye, it spread to the black hooded man. No. What the hell are you? The black hooded man screamed in horror, and he retreated crazily as if he had seen a ghost, staggering and falling to the ground. Obviously. The black hooded man saw a very scary picture. Wrong answer. I see. A woman in a windbreaker under a mask. It actually has a ferocious face that is completely opposite to the proud figure. Under the mask. What should have been a small, alluring mouth had a mouth full of blood. The normal mouth was torn open, and the split part extended all the way to the root of the ear. The wound. There are still strands of clearly visible flesh and blood that continue to stick together. As the woman in the windbreaker spoke, the flesh and blood continued to open and close like bubble gum, and a bunch of hideous tentacles could even be seen in the inhuman mouth. Obviously, some indescribable materials were also used on the Gap girl. No. Don't come here. Seeing the grim-faced slit girl pull out a pair of scissors, stepping on pure white high-heeled shoes and approaching, the black-hooded man shrouded in extreme fear hastily pulled out his pistol. Bang bang bang. Bright fires flickered in the alleys of Hell's Kitchen. However, the Glock pistol in the black-hooded man's hand could not stop the Gap girl from approaching. The bullet hit the Gap girl's body, and although blood blossomed out, the damage caused by the pistol couldn't really kill the Gap girl at all. Ghost. It's a ghost. Don't come here. Soon. Even the black-hooded man who hadn't read many books at all realized how absurd his idea of trying to physically exorcise demons was, and he wanted to escape out of the alley even when he was rolling and crawling. However, how could the Gap girl let him go so easily? Even though the black man in the hood had peed all over his pants, the Gap girl still didn't dislike how dirty the thighs of the black man in the hood were. As soon as she grabbed the black-hooded man's thigh, she directly pulled the black-hooded man in front of her, and immediately let out a giggle, laugh and rode on the black-hooded man. Finally, the black-hooded man still got his wish. Only, the situation where he got his wish was obviously very different from the one he had imagined. I see. As the Gap girl grabbed the scissors and raised and lowered the knife, raised and lowered the knife, raised and lowered the knife several times in a row, the black-hooded man who had a hole the size of a basketball in his chest was soon silent. Ka ka ka. This was the sound of the Rip girl moving her neck. Under Chu Emu's control, the Rip girl who had just completed a small order stood up and walked towards the street outside the alley. Hunted. Will continue. And the scope of influence will inevitably become wider and wider. Chu Mu admits. He threw the Gap girl into Hell's Kitchen, and he really meant to fish for law enforcement, but in the end, those lecherous people couldn't control their desires. Original. As a two-dimensional otaku who advocates truth, goodness and beauty, Chu Mu didn't intend to let his fantasy creation harm those ordinary New Yorkers whose fate is already tortuous and rough. Choose Hell's Kitchen. It is to put the target on the group of people in the world. For this reason, Chu Mu also added some detection methods about sin to the setting of Gap Girl. To put it simply, Gap Girl will only attack targets who are guilty of sins, or who have committed one of the 7 deadly sins, lust. Although Chu Mu had already heard about Hell's Kitchen, he still underestimated the crimes of Hell's Kitchen after living in the law and order environment of Dalong Kingdom in his previous life. Jack the Ripper is here, I guess he can only be regarded as a younger brother. Chu Mu can share the perspective of Rip Girl, and at the same time control Rip Girl as a duplication. The control method is like playing a game. For one night, it can only be said that Chu Mu felt a little numb, and the number of prey tonight far exceeded Chu Mu's original expectation. Fate point +1. Fate point +1. Fate point +7. ... Chu Mu has some doubts. In the New York of the Marvel Universe, is there really a woman who can come out of Hell's Kitchen alive? The Gap girl he controls can attract a lot of prey wherever he goes. Especially those BL*CKMN. Chu Mu doesn't know whether his modeling skills are really good enough. Anyway, Gap girl has never met a normal BL*CKMN during the activities in Hell's Kitchen at night. One night time. Chu Mu controls Operation Gap Girl. It almost felt like I was about to get the achievement title of Black Ghost Slayer. Definitely, at the same time that Chu Mu killed and vomited, he also gained a lot of destiny point. As long as Chu Mu's fantasy creation has an impact in this world, no matter whether there are witnesses or not, Chu Mu will be able to obtain fate point rewards according to the impact of the fantasy creation. While eating with dark circles under his eyes in the morning, Chu Mu roughly counted the harvest last night, and there were more than 400 destiny points created by him last night with the Gap Girl. Head of Destiny, Chu Mu. Strength, 7. Physique, 7. Spirit, 9. Fate point, 438. Mythological points, 1. Control Destiny, Gap Girl D-Class Fantasy Creation. Extraordinary features, none. This is Chu Mu's series interface. Very concise. It is not difficult to understand. Myth points come from the fantasy sculpture of Girl with the Gap, and it was credited directly this morning. It can only be said that the output of the lowest quality fantasy creations is indeed not large. The source of the fate point is the harvest of the random killing of Gap Girl last night. Although it is not enough to buy a lowest level seed of fantasy, it is foreseeable that as the influence of the urban legend of Gap Girl continues to expand in the city, there will inevitably be a steady stream of fate points being eliminated in the future. Mew Harvest. It can be said that there is nothing wrong with Mew's choice of urban legend. Last night, in order to cause the expansion of influence, Mew also deliberately let several gangsters go. How should I put it? There may be a legend about the Gap Girl circulating in Hell's Kitchen, but the police should not get news soon. The part where the gangsters ran to the police is a very rare situation in reality. To be honest, Mew didn't want to see Gap Girl appearing in the eyes of official organizations too early. There are many capable people and strangers in the Marvel Universe, and a small Gap Girl cannot walk sideways, which is one of the reasons why Mew didn't let her, Gap Girl, kill anyone in the city. There was too much noise. Get some ability guys out there. Mew's Gap Girl will hit the street every minute. Gap Girl is just a D-level fantasy creation, constructed with the lowest level seed of fantasy, and cannot add any extraordinary entries during the construction process. Yes, Gap Girl doesn't have any extraordinary abilities. The reason is not afraid of gun attacks. Just because all fantasy creations are not real living things. Leaving aside this point, the fantasy creations woven by the D-level seed of fantasy can only be limited to a state that is not much different from a normal person. Definitely. This is not much different, it refers to the level of strength. As a fantasy creation, the things woven by Mew will not encounter real extinction. They are immortal. If it is completely destroyed by force majeure, Mew only needs to spend fate points to resuscitate, to bring his fantasy creation back from destruction. This is probably a first-level fantasy creation, the only extraordinary characteristic it possesses. Gap Girl. Grade 1. Quality. Grade D. Experience value. 13 1/1000. Power. 10. Physique. 10. Spirit. 10. Extraordinary entry. None. This is all the attributes of the Gap Girl. As the lowest quality. The creations that can be woven by D-level seed of fantasy cannot have extraordinary attributes, and the upper limit of physical fitness is actually the limit that an ordinary person can possess. Therefore, no matter how much Mew increases the background entries of the characters, the D-level creations he can create are at best corresponding to the physical fitness of special soldiers. Well known. In the Marvel Universe, special forces are basically equivalent to cannon fodder. The influence that can be caused is obviously extremely limited. Rob a bank. Engage in kidnapping. Play terrorist attack. Mew didn't have any extra fate points to use to revive this first creation. After careful consideration, Mew decided to follow the route of urban legend. The target is also set on those people in Hell's Kitchen. Gangsters. It is impossible to call the police. Try to buy as much time as possible for Mew to develop. Definitely. If you use Destiny Point to upgrade, D-level fantasy creations can also get improved attributes, but it is difficult to have extraordinary characteristics. Unless Mew can spend a lot of money to purchase extraordinary characteristics for a certain D-level fantasy creation in the Destiny Mall, but that kind of spending can basically buy a higher level fantasy seed. Perhaps this kind of investment can be made for some higher-level D-level fantasy creations, but for the time being, Mew does not need to consider purchasing any characteristics for fantasy creations. After all, his current Destiny Point is really rare. Fantasy Destiny Arcade. In addition to Fantasy Seed, there are also a lot of things that can be purchased with fate points. However, all the products in it can only be used on fantasy creations. Spirit Absorbing. The fantasy creation that acquires this feature can acquire the ability to absorb the soul of the target and strengthen itself. Ogre's Big Rod. It can make the fantasy creation holding this item have a 5% probability of causing the target to enter a dizzy state when attacking the target. Succubus Underpants. The fantasy creation wearing this item will gain the ability to charm the target, and the success rate of charm will vary depending on the target's life level. These are items in the Destiny Mall. Didn't look at the price. It's because they are all at a price that Mew can't afford nowadays. It can be said that compared with the extraordinary entries that high-level fantasy creations can construct, more things that appear in these fate malls have rule-level effects, degree of improvement. The zero in the price of these things makes me dizzy. Chu Mu sighed. The Destiny Mall is closed. Compared with Destiny Point. What is even more difficult to obtain is the mythological point that can make him an extraordinary life. The acquisition of myth points. It is necessary for Chu Mu to improve the level of fantasy creations as much as possible and build higher quality fantasy creations. For example, the Gap Girl can only provide him with one mythological point every day. This situation is a bit like the rule of those mobile games, or the card collection type Fill Money mobile game. The more characters you have, the more myth points you can get every day. A little mythology point, if I don't save it, it can increase my attribute value. However, I still choose to save it to exchange for extraordinary ability. Chu Mu finished his breakfast. I combed myself a hairstyle that a civil servant should have. Immediately. Just carrying his satchel and embarking on the journey to work by subway. Even agents. Not everyone can afford to drive a big jeep to work. Who touched my ass? This is Chu Mu's exclamation. The person touching Chu Mu's ass is a woman. The US server version is still relatively backward, and as the party being harassed, Chu Mu can't go up and apply for a samurai duel with the female hooligan who should not be over 15 years old. She's still a child. Chu Mu calmed down his embarrassment and anger, and thought about his current job, which is still relatively stable. In the end, he did not choose any extreme measures. Fortunately, although Chu Mu still needs to take the subway to and from get off work, his home is not particularly remote. One of the benefits of being a SHIELD employee is the elite residence in New York City. Nick Fury may not be a good leader, but while embezzling SHIELD funds to build thousands of safe houses, he did not forget to seek benefits for his employees. Good morning, sir. In the office building of SHIELD. Chu Mu passed by Phil Coulson, whose hair was thinning day by day. These days, he has always maintained his courtesy to his boss, and has the habit of rushing to his office area without waiting for his boss to reply. Does he respect me or does he not respect me? This is a question that Phil Coulson has been thinking about for over a week. Looking at Chu Mu as usual. Phil Coulson sighed slightly, shook his head, and walked towards the elevator with a stack of documents. As a high-level agent of SHIELD, he has almost implemented the spirit of, the work unit is my home. If it is not really necessary to take a vacation, this old SHIELD agent is almost on call 24 hours a day. The body of the Gap Girl needs to be adjusted. After Chu Mu's practical experience with the Gap Girl last night, she still found some imperfections in the Gap Girl. As a two-dimensional illustrator who pursues perfection, he felt that it was really necessary for him to perfect his work. Others' two-dimensional pictures can only sell for 80 yuan a piece, but his can sell for 120 yuan a piece, thanks to this kind of craftsman's spirit that surpasses the cooking fairy of the island country. The muscles of the thighs need to be reduced, anyway, it does not affect the strength. At the same time, the place that is the killer of the world also needs an epic level strengthening. There will be such thoughts. It's all because when Chu Mu manipulated Gap Girl to carry out hunting operations yesterday, he met a gang member, and the girl he was holding was a size bigger than his Gap Girl. How could Chu Mu bear this? His works have always been known for their greatness. To be honest, on the construction of the Gap Girl, Chu Mu still spent a lot of thought. After all, he was just an artist, not a modeler for some games that require agent to suspend his account before he can buy it. About the construction details of Gap Girl. What Chu Mu can think of is to create an extreme contrast. When wearing a mask, the extremely seductive external conditions, as well as the extremely hideous face after taking off the mask, reflect the devil's face of an angel's figure. As long as the contrast is large enough, the degree of stimulation and shock given to others must be strong enough. Facts have proved Chu Mu's conception works really well. But, maybe even better. The tentacles and hands in the mouth have to be increased a little bit, and the highlight is that the sand value is going crazy. As an illustrator who often accepts customized private work, Chu Mu's conception ability is definitely not weak. He just used his working hours to fish and modify the model of Gap Girl. In addition to those scary places, he also exerted 120,000 points of energy and continued to optimize the adjustment of Gap Girl's figure and various body parts. Long legs, 36D, small waist, fair and translucent girlish complexion. The combination effect is not bad, at least Chu Mu thinks that the contrast should be able to meet his requirements. These materials, all from unhealthy sites that are legally accessible. Have to say, SHIELD's firewall is really powerful. Although you can see a lot of Trojan horse virus interception prompts, after all, Chu Mu's computer still doesn't suddenly play any inappropriate music. A little more refinement, after all, it is my first creation. While some agents have higher ability than Chu Mu, it seems that Chu Mu is pretending to be doing two things at one time, but in fact Chu Mu is in a state of three things at one time. Fine-tune your creations while you fish and work. Someone is coming. After seeing the high-level agent Natasha Romanoff approaching, Chu Mu's face immediately remained unchanged, and with a movement of his little hand, he skillfully used the keyboard to switch to the work page. Shield year-end assessment requirements details. As civil servants, the work content definitely also includes how to cope with the assessment during working hours, helping the entire department to pass the extremely stringent year-end award review process of the Shield Financial Department. Chu Mu was creating the document in a serious manner, and the passing Black Widow Natasha Romanoff did not stop there. She definitely would not pay attention to a small transparent agent under Phil Coulson. After Black Widow passed by, the Chu Mu shortcut key directly switches back to the unhealthy website. High speed. At first glance, he is a veteran. Chu Mu, who started concentrating on fishing and refining his model of Gap Girl, did not realize at this moment that Natasha Romanoff entered Phil Coulson's room with a stack of documents. His days of fishing in troubled waters were about to usher in a change. These are the personnel files you need to form a new department. Natasha Romanoff, wearing a black lady's suit, put a stack of documents on Phil Coulson's desk after entering the office. Would you like something to drink? Sitting behind his desk, Phil Coulson has a very friendly smile of his own. Sorry, your coffee here should go into the trash can in my opinion. Natasha Romanoff chuckled and responded to Phil Coulson with a slightly teasing tone. I can't help it. If the boss can approve more funds for me after the new department is established, maybe I can also reserve some high-end coffee for you in the office. Phil Coulson and Natasha Romanoff are also old acquaintances. Although they are not very close friends in private, after all, they are comrades in arms who can give each other their backs for many years. I can understand the other people you want to take away, but, this guy, are you sure you didn't send an extra person's message to Hill because of your hand slipping? First of all, I'm not racist. It's just that in this person's file, it is written that when he was working in the Deep Bureau, 95% of the time he was idle. Natasha Romanoff accurately extracted a thick file from a stack of files. Turn to the first page. The picture of Chu Mu smiling very brightly is above. Looking at the file, Chu Mu smiled like a sunny and cheerful boy. Natasha Romanoff raised an eyebrow slightly. This agent. When I came in just now, he was still browsing pornographic websites. Natasha Romanoff's tone carried a hint of incredulity. It's 9:20 in the morning, just 20 minutes into work. Well, it can only be said that the top agent's insight into the environment is indeed somewhat beyond Chu Mu's expectations. Being able to complete a day's workload in 5% of the time is originally a proof of his excellence, isn't it? Phil Coulson's novel angle made Natasha Romanoff speechless. Besides, he is just 20 years old. Although he browses those websites, he has no consumption records. Many agents do not have such self-control. Phil Coulson continued smiling. Natasha Romanoff didn't know what to say. If it wasn't for Chu Mu being a Chinese American through and through, she would have wondered if Phil Coulson and Chu Mu were related by blood. Probably seeing Natasha Romanoff's doubts, Phil Coulson then flipped through Chu Mu's file again, and presented a page in front of Black Widow Natasha Romanoff. In the graduation record of Shield Academy, his grades are in the same period. No, he is the best one in 10 consecutive years. I think such grades are enough to be qualified for the job in the new department. Phil Coulson spoke in a deep voice. Looking at Phil Coulson, who is also a high-level agent, Natasha Romanoff nodded, and she understood that perhaps this last point was the reason why Phil Coulson valued Chu so much. New department. It is really necessary to have a good enough agent for this kind of field ability. Yeah. Outside the office. In the office area of the SHIELD clerical agent, Chu, who had been tinkering with the Gap Girl model, looked up at the clock on the office wall. 9:40. There are still more than 2 hours until SHIELD starts dinner. This time. It's also time to make a cup of coffee and think carefully about what dishes to choose for lunch at noon. Not to mention, SHIELD's canteen food Chu can give a super high evaluation of 99 points. What is the level of the agent with the best grades in SHIELD Academy in the past 10 years? 11:55. Without warning, Chu got up and cleaned up his office desktop, pushing the potato chips, beef jerky, and the 6th order Rubik's Cube on the desktop into his office drawer. And when he strode out of the office gate and arrived at the canteen gate with cheerful steps, the wall clock on the canteen wall just pointed to the direction of 12 o'clock. 1 second is not much, 1 second is not much. The time management ability of an excellent agent is terrifying. Mexican burrito, black pepper steak, and another mapo tofu. I also want to have seafood fried rice. Is the thing that is being fried over there crab? As a global department, SHIELD has employees from all over the world. There are also various types of canteens to choose from, covering almost all types of catering in major countries. The chefs are also very good high-level chefs. Although they cannot reach the top cooking skills of those large restaurants, they are definitely much better than the chefs of most restaurants. On this side, SHIELD's finance department is very willing to spend money. After all, if you want a horse to run, you have to feed the horse good grass. As a high-risk occupation, an agent naturally needs to guarantee a superior living condition. In SHIELD's annual employee ratings, the cafeteria always tops the list with 99% of the praise, and the remaining 1% of the employees give the cafeteria a bad review. There is no other reason. The main reason is that SHIELD also has some Korean agents. They cannot find authentic Korean kimchi in the SHIELD cafeteria, and every year a large number of Korean agents form a group to protest the canteen has too much meat. To this, Chu is not surprised either. A few days ago, he was still in Chinatown, bought a pack of kimchi from Longguo University Kilu, and fed it experimentally to a Korean girl in the office. This is the taste. The taste of our hometown in Korea. When asked by the Korean girl where Chu got the hometown flavor, kimchi, Chu didn't give an answer. He just confirmed a guess that he was rather curious. The canteen supply department of SHIELD didn't understand the purchase of ingredients. They went to Daehan Minguo to buy local kimchi and came back to definitely prevent the Korean agents from eating the authentic taste of their hometown. It's really unpalatable. The cafeteria is getting more and more perfunctory. Seeing the Korean girl criticizing the Korean kimchi in the cafeteria for not being authentic enough, Chu silently picked up her plate and found a corner where no one was around, and began to feast on it. Hey, Chu, are you eating alone again? A handsome Caucasian guy sat across from Chu. This is the 5th time he has struck up a conversation with Chu in the cafeteria. Chu actually doesn't like to be disturbed by others while eating, but everyone is from SHIELD after all. Colleague, facing the attentive guy, he can only show a very standard smirk. I like to enjoy food alone. Chu's response obviously did not allow the white guy to understand the implication in his words. Perhaps it can be said that the white guy was pretending not to understand the meaning of expulsion in Chu's words. Would you like some black bread? It's very healthy. The white guy is still attentive and enthusiastic. No thanks, I'm temporarily allergic to black. Chu sighed inwardly. He is very clear. The white guy in front of him must have other plans for him, but it's not that the guy has any special hobbies and wants to establish a relationship with him that surpasses his colleagues. The white guy's name is Grant Ward, a very common name. If Chu hadn't watched the American TV series of SHIELD Agent, he would only think that this guy is a relatively good cannon fodder for the SHIELD field team. Well, Grant is definitely still cannon fodder, but he has a lot of scenes in the American TV series of SHIELD Agent. It was precisely because Chu knew Grant's name that he knew that Grant was always trying to get close to him, not because Grant wanted to start a story beyond morality with him. This guy is a Hydra. Deeply hidden Hydra. Hydra in SHIELD always likes to develop partners among excellent agents, and it is a coincidence that Chu Emu's graduation performance is very eye-catching in this world's identity background. Hydra will definitely not let go of a once-in-a-10-year talent. There is no doubt about it. Grant, a person with excellent field ability, is sent to approach Chu Mu, yearning, and in the field assessment results are also very good. Perhaps Hydra wants people who can resonate with Chu Mu to recruit Chu Mu. It has to be said that Hydra is able to develop a large number of members within SHIELD. It is indeed very high. Unfortunately, however, even Hydra obviously did not expect that the Chu Mu of at the moment is no longer the original Chu Mu, he is the smarter Chu Mu who knows how to enjoy life. Only fools like to go to the field. Wouldn't it be nice to play Rubik's Cube with the air conditioner in the office, and talk about nasty jokes with beautiful colleagues? Chu, tomorrow weekend, we have a party. Do you want to attend? They are all excellent young people, and they will share some wonderful experiences that everyone encountered when they were out on the job. Grant is still trying his best to get in touch with Chu Mu. Sorry, I still have some things I haven't thought of to deal with tomorrow. Grant, it's getting late, I have to go back and finish the work in hand. Chu Mu felt that he had fully demonstrated the politeness that a working person should have. He poured the leftover food into the trash can next to him, put down the plate, and immediately walked towards the door of the cafeteria. Looking at Chu Emu's back, Grant's expression was full of complexity. He sighed heavily. I have never felt that the task entrusted by the boss of Hydra can be so difficult. Are you busy with work? Who in SHIELD doesn't know that Phil Coulson has a super agent under him? HYDRA's judgment on Chu Emu's behavior is that Chu Mu was silently protesting that SHIELD did not allow him to enter the field team as he wished, but instead gave him a civilian job. Original. Grant also thinks so, but with the recent contact with Chu Mu, he has obviously become a little less confident about Hydra and his own judgment. This guy, is he really a depressed agent? Why does it feel like he is enjoying the current life of a fool? Who doesn't like being a jerk? As a native of Longguo, Chu Mu knows that the end of a career is the establishment, which is the life principle of a civil servant. If possible, Chu Mu hopes to stay in the civilian service of SHIELD for a lifetime. Definitely. Chu Mu, who knows how dangerous the Marvel Universe is and also understands that SHIELD still has a few years left, also knows that his ideal will never be realized. Whether it's the crisis hanging over his head or the fact that SHIELD is about to disband, it reminds Chu Mu that the good old days now belong to the novice protection period, that is temporary and cherished. I don't know if I can ask my boss to replace my computer with a 4090 graphics card before SHIELD is disbanded. I can also take some benefits with me when SHIELD closes down. Chu Mu returned to his desk, wondering if it was his secret plan, that even God couldn't stand it. He just spent 10 minutes making himself a cup of cappuccino. Department Director Phil Coulson appeared at his desk and put a transfer notice on his desk. What's the situation? Chu Mu looked at Phil Coulson with strange eyes. Transfer. Could it be that the thing about fishing by himself was discovered, and now he is going to be sent to grow potatoes in Siberia? Not so. He is not the only one who likes to fish in the office. To put it simply, I was appointed by the director to set up a brand new department, so I need to take away some of my trusted subordinates, and you are on my list. Phil Coulson smiled and explained the situation to Chu Mu. Oh. It's not that fishing was discovered. Chu Mu breathed a sigh of relief. Can I refuse? Chu Mu is already used to the current office environment, and, as an agent department, he also knows very well that if he is transferred, he will definitely not be able to copy and take away the URLs of more than 600 websites stored in the office computer. In fact, every piece of data on the computer will not be allowed to be copied privately by the agent. Huh, I thought you'd really like to work in the field. Phil Coulson was visibly taken aback. His words. It also made Chu Mu stunned for a moment. Field work. Dogs don't go to that stuff. Which civil servant who is mixed up in the office would still want to go out to work? Isn't that the job of low-level civil servants? Although this is the United States, Chu Mu still wants to sit and get the high-temperature subsidy, and the field work of SHIELD has never been a low-mortality job. Maybe what you think is just what you think. I think I have my own thoughts. Chu Mu tried his best to reject the transfer of SHIELD employees, this time in a more tactful way. Phil Coulson could definitely hear the implication in Chu Mu's words, and his expression began to become a little weird. He really couldn't understand his subordinate. Like Hydra and Grant, Phil Coulson has always believed that Chu Mu's work attitude of fishing every day is a silent protest and complaint against SHIELD. However, now it seems. This is because I have mixed feelings in the clerical work, and I don't have the fighting spirit that I used to yearn for in the field. In your new position, you can have your own Jeep, all expenses will be borne by SHIELD, and that car will be completely and exclusively yours. Phil Coulson made a very good offer. He knows. Chu Mu has always had a soft spot for big Jeeps. I still want to say no. Chu Mu blinked, but the voice of answer was still firm. Joke. A Jeep wants to make him give up his current life. He has a dream of wanting to develop and eventually become the 10 Lipo Sword God. Dream. Understand. The sun is shining brightly. Next to the busy city road. Sitting on the driver's seat of the brand new Jeep, Chu Mu sighed heavily. He never expected it. In the end, the dream still lost to reality. Although Chu Mu protested by struggling with reason, who made SHIELD's labor contract clearly state that SHIELD employees need to unconditionally cooperate with the department's actions. This transfer. Chu Mu has no right to refuse. This is probably the difference between the civil servants of the United States and the civil servants of Longguo. After all, the civil servants of Longguo are more comfortable. As long as they don't want to do something, even the big leaders can't force it. Definitely. In the end, the reason for Chu Mu to compromise was not actually this unscrupulous labor contract. After all, if it really didn't work, Chu Mu still had the option of resigning and going home to lie down and develop directly. The reason why he chose to compromise in the end was that Phil Coulson explained to him the situation of the new department in detail and showed him some of the work content of the new department. How to say? The declaration of, for the people of New York, did not impress Chu Mu. What impresses Chu Mu is the file of Hell's Kitchen Massacre that he glimpsed in 5 or 6 new department documents. It was a document about the impact of the incident caused by Gap Girl. Although the existence of Gap Girl was not locked in it, it was also labeled highly suspected supernatural event by SHIELD. Have to say, Chu Mu read a lot of Marvel novels in his previous life, and he really underestimated the efficiency of SHIELD. Unexpectedly, the action that started last night has already attracted the attention of SHIELD. Facing the possible investigation by the new department against Gap Girl, what choice can he make? He definitely can only choose a path that is as beneficial to him as possible. I'm investigating myself, it should be able to delay a lot of development time. This is an important reason why Chu Mu finally compromised. Joined Phil Coulson in his new department. In case of shortage of manpower. He only needs to show a little interest, and the task of Hell's Kitchen Massacre will definitely fall on his head, and then he will be able to control the initiative of the incident. The same way. If Chu Mu creates new fantasy creations and implants them into this world to carry out various activities, he will also be able to obtain the investigation progress in Phil Coulson's supernatural event response team at the first time. Figured this out. In the end, Chu Mu reluctantly gave up his comfortable office life. However, his last stubbornness still made him request to take away the computer in his office. No surprises. Although Phil Coulson's expression was hesitant to speak, it was extremely strange, but Phil Coulson finally agreed to Chu Mu's request. As a SHIELD high-level agent, he still has such authority. I'm really working hard. Although Chu Mu eventually joined Phil Coulson's new team out of self-interest, he still protested silently over the purchase of the Jeep. Highest configuration. The most cheating 4S shop on the internet. A tough stance that does not allow sales to discount any offers. It is a consolation for Chu Mu to be able to spend more money on SHIELD's financial department. Next Monday, this car will be sent for refitting. Before that, I can try the car for a while. It may be a comfort to not squeeze the subway to work every day. Because of the reassignment. After Chu Mu sorted out his things, he would not have to go to work for 2 days today and tomorrow. He thought that maybe he should take a good tour of the sinful city where he is now. Just when Chu Mu was thinking about whether he should visit the Stark building or experience the bars in the city of Sin, the passenger door of his big jeep was suddenly opened. A blonde beauty that Chu Mu didn't know sat directly on the co-pilot. Drive fast, help me, I can give you $200. The blonde beauty said to Chu Mu, anxiously looking at the rearview mirror. Although she used the word, help, the superior tone sounded like she was giving orders. After a moment of silence, Chu Mu turned his head and looked at the co-pilot, whom he didn't recognize, but whose appearance and figure could be seen to be of high quality. He slowly frowned in displeasure. You dirty my new car seat. Although she is a beauty. But the beauty with sweaty head and sweaty arms still makes Chu Mu feel uncomfortable. This is the big jeep he paid a painful price for. You don't know me. I'm Madison, and I'm a big star. The blonde beauty looked at Chu Mu, her eyes widened, and her tone was full of unbelievable displeasure. Chu Mu was also taken aback. He did feel that the blonde beauty in front of him looked familiar, but after thinking about it carefully, there seemed to be no character named Madison in the Marvel Universe. Perhaps some unknown passerby character. A big star only pays $200 for help. My colleagues in the office ask me to buy kimchi for more than that. Chu Mu's response was also very quick. And his tone was even more upset than that of the blonde beauty Madison. The blonde beauty Madison seems to be very concerned about her status as a big star. Seeing that Chu Mu didn't care about it, he even seemed to be full of disdain for himself. She was suddenly a little annoyed. Isn't it just money? I definitely have money. Here. Are you satisfied now? Madison seemed to be showing her strength, grabbed a stack of dollar bills from her small bag, and slapped it on the center console of the big jeep. Chu Mu has the basic qualities of an agent, so he only needs to glance at it to directly and accurately determine that the stack of banknotes has a total of 31 bills. 3,100 USD. In the society of the United States, it is absolutely unquestionable common sense that anyone who can carry so much cash with him must be a rich man if he is not a laundry detergent dealer. Is he really a star? Chu Mu was slightly surprised, and couldn't help but look at Madison a few more times. What are you looking at? Drive fast. Madison anxiously urged Chu Mu. Her gaze was constantly looking in the direction of the rearview mirror. A group of people were constantly approaching the place where Chu Mu's jeep was parked. Living stars are rare. Chu Mu answered what was in his heart very frankly. Madison was going crazy. She swears. If it wasn't for the fact that Chu Mu's super good looks suit her, and the other party's words didn't contain any molesting elements, she would definitely use her ability to kill such an aggressive guy directly. It's too late. Drive quickly. I'll take a photo with you. Autographs are fine too. Now please hurry up and drive. Madison saw that the person chasing her had already stood in front of the jeep. The appearance of is directly covering his delicate face with his hands. Wait. Chu Mu opened his black satchel, found a blue ID from among a lot of various IDs inside, and got out of the car. He felt that the people chasing the girl should be that kind of unscrupulous forces. If they were left alone, maybe he would be able to see Madison's photo on his material website in a few days. That stack of banknotes is really not that important, his main focus is actually serving the people. After all, the duty of the SHIELD agent is to protect the safety of the people on Earth, right? Is there anything you guys do around my car? Chu Mu showed a standard professional smirk, and showed the ID in his hand in front of the 5 people parked next to the passenger door of his jeep. It was a passport photo of an agent of the United States Federal Revenue Service. As an employee of SHIELD, it is obviously a very reasonable thing to carry around legally forged photos of other departments. We have something to do with the girl in your car. Among the 5 people, there are 4 women, all in their 40s or 50s, dressed as dignified ladies who are not easy to mess with, and the burly man who followed the 4 old ladies said to Chu Mu indifferently. I have nothing to do with what you are looking for with that girl, but you have to wait behind me. The girl inside is involved in a major federal case of tax evasion. Now I'm investigating this case, don't hinder my law enforcement, understand? Chu Mu tried to imitate the strong attitude that the agents of the United States Tax Department should have. The burly man was obviously overwhelmed by Chu Mu's strength, and he looked at the 4 old ladies for help, not daring to say anything cruel about the underworld to Chu Mu. After all, everyone in the United States understands that. In the face of the police or the FBI, you can ignore it, but if you dare to play tricks in front of the tax bureau, the result you will face will definitely not be a good result. We are all law-abiding citizens, and we will definitely cooperate with the mission of law enforcement agencies. We are very sorry to delay your time, this detective. Among the group of old ladies, one of the old ladies with an elegant temperament and a sense of grace and luxury interrupted the thoughts of her other companions who wanted to talk. We'll see her next time. The old lady took a deep look at the passenger seat of the jeep, and then led the other three old ladies and the burly man into a corner without looking back. Chu Mu didn't expect it to be so easy. Seeing the disappearing figures of the old ladies, he raised his eyebrows, and then went around to the driver's side of the jeep and opened the door. How did you do it? They just left. Madison had been sitting in the closed car, and could only see Chu Mu communicating with the group of people outside the car, but did not know what Chu Mu said to the group of people. It's unbelievable. They are a group of crazy religious believers. I even wondered what kind of devil they were going to sacrifice me to. I didn't expect to be driven away by you so easily. Madison's voice was full of disbelief, and she constantly looked at the position of the rearview mirror, as if to confirm whether the group of people had really gone away. It shows that I am persuasive. Chu Mu unceremoniously took all the USDs that Madison slapped on the center console into his pockets. This was his reward for using his position to use power for personal gain, and risk great danger. Proper hard-earned money. And Madison is still a big man and his co-pilot is dirty. Is there something wrong? The money you earn. Chu Mu took it with a sense of peace of mind. Think from another angle. He got money in return. Madison, a high-probability taxpayer among New Yorkers, was safe. Isn't this a win-win situation under the implementation of SHIELD's purpose of protecting the safety of people in the world? Chu Mu thinks that this matter is even worthy of SHIELD awarding him an Advanced Individual of the Year award. All right. The United States doesn't care about that. Chu Mu is not the kind of person who particularly cares about reputation. Quietly earn a little extra money. Even in the United States, you can be a live Lei Feng who doesn't care about fame and fortune. So, can I leave my car now? Chu Mu just put the wallet back into his pocket, and then looked at Madison with a repelling look. You just took my money. Madison was very depressed. Why does it feel like it has lost its effect on my usual beauty? The man in front of me, apart from having a good-looking skin, is simply the best of the best. Perhaps. It is such a wonderful work, to communicate with those religious lunatics. Madison thought depressingly in her heart, but she didn't intend to leave Chu Mu's jeep. I helped you get rid of them. The implication of Chu Mu is that he has done his due service. You have to take me out of here. I suspect they are still around. Madison didn't understand Chu Mu's hint that, you have to pay more, she just said to Chu Mu in an unquestionable tone. In order to express his determination not to get out of the car, Madison fastened his seat belt while talking. That's. Before Chu Mu finished speaking, he was interrupted. I know, that's the new seat belt of your new car, can you please drive now? Madison was depressed by Chu Mu. This is the reaction a normal man should have when seeing her. Could it be that I met a gay? Why? Chu Mu thought for a while, but in the end he did not choose to use violence to expel Madison, but he also experienced the helplessness of taking people softly. Really? Money is not easy to earn. Can you lift your feet up? I think your high heels are not too clean. Chu Mu started the car, but he still insisted. Probably because he didn't want to argue with Chu Mu, Madison just rolled his eyes, lifted his long legs, and hugged him in front of his body. Needless to say, most of the difficult movements of raising and hugging legs can only be done by girls who learn to dance. It can only be said that girls who are stars have good physical foundation. Chu Mu turned his head and took a few more glances. I think this girl's hip curve can be kept in my mind as a backup material. What kind of eyes do you have? Madison only felt a little hairy in her heart. She couldn't figure out who she got into a car at all, and Chu Mu's eyes didn't make her feel those pervert-like insignificance. But the feeling of hairy in the heart, but it is much stronger than when facing the pervert. If Madison hadn't been very confident in her own strength, and worried about the group of people who had been pestering her, she wouldn't have stayed in Chu Emu's car anyway. This person. Too strange. The jeep drifted away. The corner of the street. The four old ladies and the burly man did not leave. Under the leadership of the elegant old lady, several people walked out of the corner again, looking at the back of Chu Emu's jeep. One of the old ladies looked at the elegant old lady very suspiciously. I don't understand. We can clearly manipulate that man and let him hand over Madison to us. Why did you block my spellcasting just now? The expression of the red-haired old lady was full of puzzlement. Ah. The elegant old lady glanced at the red-haired old lady disdainfully, conjured a lady's cigarette out of thin air and put it near her mouth, only to see that the end of the cigarette was strangely lit with flames. I can feel the danger that you ordinary witches can't feel. This is the difference between me and you. This is also the reason why I am the supreme witch and you are nothing. The elegant old lady exhaled a smoke ring, and looked at the back of the jeep with a slight flickering feeling. Her mocking words made the red-haired old lady slightly annoyed. But, in the end, the red-haired old lady still didn't have any emotional outbursts. After all, although she had always been dissatisfied with the elegant old lady in front of her, she had to admit the facts that the elegant old lady said. The other party is the supreme witch. And I am not. That young man. The elegant old lady was very satisfied with the attitude of the old ladies around her. She snapped her fingers, and after the burly man disappeared in place, she began to explain to the other witches in a deep voice. He is guarded by evil spirits. The language is not amazing and endless. The elegant old lady's words directly stunned the other witches. Several old witches looked at each other. His face was full of horror and disbelief. Evil spirit. Fiona. Do you know what you're talking about? Guarding a living person. It's absolutely impossible. Although the red-haired old lady's tone was very firm, it could also be seen from the look of surprise in her eyes that she looked at the elegant old lady that she was not convinced in her heart. Are you questioning me? The elegant old lady looked at the red-haired old lady, and there was some kind of power surging in her eyes, which made the red-haired old man feel a chill down his back and quickly lowered his head. Facing such people, we can't take risks. After all, our world is very dangerous. Even I have to deal with those terrible things carefully. The elegant old lady withdrew her threatening gaze, and she spit out a series of smoke rings again. Her thoughts seemed to be trapped in some kind of memory. That was when she had just killed her teacher, the previous supreme witch, successfully usurped the throne, and not long after she obtained the personality and power of the supreme witch. Fiona will never forget. When she celebrates herself alone. The bald woman who suddenly appeared in her room, how much psychological shadow did she cause that night? That kind of majestic and terrifying power makes her tremble all over when she thinks about it to this day. You say you are the invincible supreme witch. Interesting. The playful smile and words of the bald woman have always been remembered by Fiona, and she regards it as a shame and a motivation to surpass her. In front of an apartment building in the city. The brand new Jeep had its brake lights on. Why did you stop here? Madison still hugged her legs, in a position that made her uncomfortable. Seeing the Jeep turn on the turning lights, she leaned her head against the window, and then looked at the strange man sitting next to her in the driver's seat with some doubts. Because I'm home. Chu Mu switches gears, parks on the side, turns off the engine, and pulls out the key in one go. When he got out of the car and walked to the co-pilot's seat, and opened the co-pilot's door, Madison, who was sitting on the co-pilot holding his thigh, didn't even react. I don't want a strange woman to stay in my car for one night, so, can I ask you to get out of the car? Chu Mu showed a polite smile to Madison. Immediately. Under Madison's astonished expression, he stretched out his hand and hugged Madison, who was in a strange posture, and put him directly on the fire hydrant by the side of the road. Bew. The remote control of the Jeep rang twice, and the door locks on the four windows were all down. Chu Mu didn't want to have too much communication with Madison. He strode towards the apartment building where he lived. In situ. Only one left. After regaining his senses, quickly lowered his feet to avoid Madison, who fell from the fire hydrant, and looked at the back of Chu Mu leaving with a face full of disbelief. How can there be such a wonderful man in this world? I'm a star. This is how a normal man would react when he sees a beautiful female star. Huh. Madison took several deep breaths, and then suppressed the impulse in his heart, and did not choose to use his ability to directly fly Chu Mu's jeep or set fire to the apartment where Chu Mu lived. Follow her temper. She is very likely to do such a thing. One of the reasons why she resisted her inner impulse was also because Chu Mu did succeed in helping her get rid of a group of crazy women after all. Definitely. Biggest reason. Or does she know that as long as she uses her ability, those crazy women will have the means to know where she is, which is what Madison fears the most. Her star career is bright. I went back to be a witch when my brain had a convulsion. Chu Mu was in a hurry to go home. Definitely have important things to keep busy. He didn't release the Gap Girl activity during the day, and the income of Fate Point is not too much, and the prompt of Fate Point +1 will pop up every once in a while. Although those gangsters in Hell's Kitchen and the lucky ones released by Chu Mu are still constantly promoting the story of last night's Big Mouth Ghost, but after all, Gap Girl did not continue to be active. Obviously, relying on the little influence created in Hell's Kitchen can't provide too many Fate Points. Because of this, seeing dusk coming, naturally, Chu Mu is in a hurry to go home and control the Gap Girl to go to work. How to say? In fact, even if Chu Mu does not control the activities of Gap Girl, according to the behavioral logic he edited for Gap Girl can still move freely in a limited area. It's like those game NPCs whose behavior logic is edited. The reason why Gap Girl was not allowed to move freely is that Chu Mu was mainly worried that letting Gap Girl move around on her own during the day would increase the possibility of Gap Girl being noticed by special personnel. The Gap Girl, with a weird air, is obviously unable to defeat those special personnel in the Marvel Universe. Therefore, it is the safest choice for Gap Girl to be active at night. More than just fitting the backdrop for an urban legend. And it can also provide a layer of night cover for Gap Girl. Don't talk about those lonely ghosts, just talk about those big living people who are thieves and robbers. Thieves will choose to be active at night, and there is definitely a certain, natural law in it. In the dead of night, even if something happens, it will not be as easy to be caught as it is during the day. Fate Point +1. Fate Point +3. Fate Point +1. A light curtain flickered like a TV screen, and the Gap Girl controlled by Chu Mu reappeared in Hell's Kitchen, starting her hunt for those sinners. Perhaps the action mechanism that can smell the smell of sin can also be regarded as an extraordinary means. In the process of editing mythical characters, the editing interface has many similar action mechanism options. Do you think I'm beautiful? The Gap Girl caught a gangster kid who was running slower. Beautiful, beautiful. The face of the gangster boy was extremely pale. He only laughed at the rumors about the slit girl in the morning, but he didn't expect that this scary woman would come to him tonight. And now, the Gap Girl took off her mask, and the big mouth with countless tentacles waving continuously scared the gangster boy into the urine, and the terrifying face made the gangster scream out of his lungs. Wrong answer. The scissors in the hands of the Gap Girl stabbed the gangster boy without any hesitation. After a while, an open-minded corpse was thrown to the ground by her like garbage. Over there, relying on the unique sense of smell of the Gap Girl and the perspective of evil perception, Chu Mu continued to play asymmetrical games similar to Death by Daylight in Hell's Kitchen. Maybe some people will be more familiar with the game, Fifth Personality. Fate Point +3. Fate Point +1. Tonight's harvest is equally rich. But, due to staying up late yesterday, Chu Mu was not able to stay up all night tonight. At 12 o'clock in the morning, Chu Mu, who couldn't bear it any longer, chose the mode of letting Gap Girl move freely within the prescribed area. I hope there will be a good harvest tomorrow. Chu Mu also closed his eyes and fell asleep with anticipation for Sunday. During the days he traveled through, he already had a lot of understanding of his own system. His system has an operation mode similar to that of the Phil Money mobile game, and every Sunday at 6 o'clock in the morning, there will be a limited time, Crazy Sunday, event in Mythology Mall. During this day, there will be discounts on the refreshed products in Myth Mall, and there will also be a gift pack of Myth Blind Box that can only be purchased once per refresh. All it takes is a little mythology point. You can get this gift pack from Myth Mall. Although Mythical Mall described this gift package as a luxury gift or household garbage, no one would choose to refuse such a benefit. Just in case. What if something good comes out of it? Anyway, only a little myth point is needed. And for Chu Mu. After all, this is the only mythical product he can afford. You know, living in a place like the Marvel Universe, and starting the game as a cheating agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., it would still make Chu Mu feel very insecure if he didn't step into Transcendence earlier. Hope, I can have good luck tomorrow. Golden sunlight shone into Chu Mu's bedroom from outside the window. I know. It's your fart. When the sun shone on Chu Mu's handsome face, he also woke up from the nightmare of being hunted down by Thanos. In the dream, he happened to be hunted down by the big boss of the Marvel Universe, Thanos. Overlord. Director of the Universal Family Planning Commission. In Chu Mu's dream, he wanted to screw his ass off in the name of, no one is allowed to fart in the universe. Huh, what a nonsense dream. Chu Mu lifted his quilt. Nitrogen and hydrogen gas accumulated overnight in the body were released. From the pissed sound that lasted for a full 5 seconds, it is actually not difficult to understand why he had a dream last night. Fantasy creation, Gap Girl, has been shattered. Just after recovering from the thought of, Thanos in the dream must be jealous of my butt that is more perfect than the Captain of the United States, Chu Mu saw a not so wonderful news from the system log records. The Gap Girl was killed. This is definitely not death in the conventional sense. After all, the Gap Girl is not a real living life. The so-called being killed is actually the Gap Girl being destroyed. What happened? Chu Mu felt a little uncomfortable. He felt that he shouldn't have allowed Gap Girl to move freely last night. If he hadn't allowed Gap Girl to move freely this morning, he wouldn't have received such a distressing blow. Gap Girl, this hasn't earned me a few days of fate points. Why is it gone? Would you choose to spend 200 fate points to revive the fantasy creator Gap Girl? Chu Mu now only has Gap Girl as a fantasy creation, so it is naturally impossible to abandon this only tool person. He can only revive Gap Girl from destruction. Fortunately, the level of Gap Girl is not high now, and it is the lowest fantasy creation, so the fate points needed for recovery are still within Chu Mu's tolerance. With the deduction of fate points, the broken statue of Gap Girl was reshaped in Chu Mu's consciousness space, and Chu Mu also felt the message of Gap Girl again. Gap Girl. Grade 1. Quality. Grade D. Experience points. 21 1,000ths. Power. 10. Physique. 10. Spirit. 10. Extraordinary entry. None. Fantasy creations can not only increase experience value upgrade by using fate points, their activities and influence in this world can also allow them to increase their own experience value. It's just that the speed of this self-improvement is obviously not as fast as the upgrade speed of using fate points. How did it die? After resuscitating Gap Girl from destruction, Chu Mu looked at the system log records again, and immediately, his expression became a little more exciting. Turn out to be. It was Gap Girl who happened to run into 2 criminal gangs conducting an arms deal when she was moving freely. She immediately started hunting after smelling the sinister aura. However, who ever thought? In the arms trade conducted by this group of criminal gangs, there is actually a heavy fire weapon such as an RPG rocket launcher, and the free-moving Gap Girl is also a tough guy, and she rushed towards a gang member holding an RPG rocket launcher going up. The rocket directly hit Gap Woman in the chest. Nima, who can stand this? Chu Mu watched Gap Girl explode into flesh in the log. He covered his face, not sure whether to blame himself for letting Gap Girl act or the security environment in New York. How could gangsters be able to buy bazookas in the city? Oh, RPG rocket launcher produced by Stark Group. That's no surprise. Tony Stark's uncle Obadiah even dared to sell arms to terrorists in the Middle East, so it's not incomprehensible for his subordinates to sell heavy weapons in New York City. This kind of sale. Obadiah must have colluded with people from some relevant departments. As for what to do if they are exposed by reporters or the media, Chu Mu can tell them how to deal with it without even thinking about it. Hungry Russians. This must be a conspiracy by the hungry Russians. In the United States, it's not too easy to get rid of any blame that involves social stability. I have pity on my 200 fate points, and the human killer that the Gap girl is so proud of, it was directly blown into hundreds of pieces and splattered everywhere. I will remember this grudge. Chu Mu used the system's log interface to create a memo, recording the hatred about Obadiah, and prepared to remind himself at all times that he must find an opportunity to retaliate. Head of Destiny, Chu Mu. Strength, 7. Physique, 7. Spirit, 9. Fate point, 1167. Myth points, 2. Control Destiny, Gap Girl, D-Class Fantasy Creation. Extraordinary features, none. Fortunately, Chu Mu stayed up until 12 o'clock yesterday, and went to bed after the myth points had been settled, otherwise, today's myth points would definitely not have been successfully obtained. Once the fantasy creation is shattered, the statues that represent its existence will also shatter. Naturally, there is no way to give Chu Mu the settlement of providing myth points. Although Gap Girl can only provide a little myth points every day, it is the rarest system currency after all. If Chu Mu fails to get it successfully, it is estimated that she will not be able to sleep for several nights. It's really unlucky for the Gap Girl to be killed. I hope this incident has used up my bad luck. Let me see if the mythical blind box can give me some comfort for my traumatized young heart. Chu Mu sighed, sorted out his emotions, and couldn't wait to open the myth mall. He didn't forget that today is the crazy Sunday of the system. Dog Charm item. Original price, 20,000 myth points. Crazy Sunday discounts, 20% off. Effect. It can make the holder forever young and immortal, and can give the holder the power to keep youth and immortality. Fortified Colony Armor item. Original price, 12,000 myth points. Crazy Sunday discount, 10% off. Effect. Randomly give the holder a set of super biological weapon armor that can be perfectly combined with the holder, which will greatly improve the holder's individual combat ability. Parseltongue Bloodline. Original price, 300 myth points. Crazy Sunday discounts, 50% off. Effect. Gives the user the ability to talk to all snakes. Listening to the snake language, the blood will live forever, and it can also slightly increase the user's lifespan and magic affinity. Myth Mall is refreshed every week. There are many strange and incomparable commodities in the mall. It's just that these commodities all have one characteristic that is very unified today. That is, they are all things that Chu Mu cannot afford. Poor Chu Mu struggled to move his eyes away from the products that made him very excited, and quickly found the only item he was currently consuming. Mythical Blind Box 1 remaining. Special offer. 1 myth point. Effect. You may open a toothbrush, or a star warship, and even obtain supreme divine power. Please believe that it will never disappoint any European emperor. Open it for me. Chu Mu took a deep breath and chose to buy without any hesitation. As his myth points were deducted by the system, a box that looked like a Christmas gift package suddenly opened in his consciousness space. Immediately, brilliant brilliance bloomed in the blind box. I really am the Emperor of Europe. Chu Mu exclaimed directly. He saw gold. That is the color that represents super high quality. Extraordinary power. This is something Chu Mu has been longing for. Since he came to the Marvel Universe, he has always wanted to obtain extraordinary power, so he conceived Gap Girl so seriously and released it. However, as the lowest fantasy creation, Gap Girl accumulation of myth points is really too slow. Even if Chu Mu's feverish brain controls the Gap Girl to go on a killing spree, he can only quickly harvest a sum of destiny points. Not to mention that Chu Mu hasn't done it yet. According to the normal accumulation speed, if one wants to acquire some super power, even low-level extraordinary power such as Parseltongue, it will definitely take a long time to accumulate. It can be said that Mythical Blind Box is an opportunity that Chu Mu placed high hopes on. And now, this opportunity did not disappoint him. I don't know if it's because of the novice protection mechanism, or if Chu Mu is really a genuine European emperor. He opened the mythical blind box for the first time and there was a high-quality harvest. Golden Radiance. What the system represents is S-level quality things. Although not the highest quality. But it also belongs to the level that Chu Mu absolutely can't expect in a short period of time. It can be opened directly from the blind box. This was definitely a pleasant surprise for Chu Mu. Being chased by Thanos in the dream to cut his ass early in the morning, and being depressed by the slit girl being killed, everything disappeared at this moment, and Chu Mu couldn't wait to check his gains. Origin Castle. Quality. S grade. Effect. In a certain extraordinary world, it represents the original substance that supports the gods. Holding it, you control a long step to ascend to the gods that became the pillar of the old days. As Chu Mu received the harvest from the mythical blind box, a series of system prompts sounded like a chain reaction in his ears. You have taken control of your destiny, Origin Castle. Related products in this world have been unlocked. You have obtained a permanent list of items that can be purchased. Commodity Sequence 9 Potion Seer has been unlocked. Commodity Sequence 8 Potion Joker has been unlocked. Commodity Sequence 3 Potion Dream Weaver has been unlocked. Commodity Sequence 2 Potion Death Console has been unlocked. Commodity Wishing Lamp has been unlocked. The Book of Natural Disasters has been unlocked. The Box of the Old Days has been unlocked. Can you imagine the scene where countless prompts sounded one after another at such a fast speed that it lasted for a full 5 minutes? Chu Mu at the moment is experiencing such an experience. Complicated beeps. It's like being in a bar full of people. Very noisy. But Chu Mu at the moment was very excited and didn't find the system's notification sound so annoying. In his opinion, that series of sounds was simply the most beautiful movement in the world. You actually unlocked so many mythical commodity options in one go. Extracting items from a certain world from the mythical blind box would actually unlock the product exchange list for that world. Chu Mu, who thought he knew the system very well, was surprised. Definitely. What surprised Chu Mu the most was the S-level item opened in the mythical blind box. Origin Castle. When the mythical blind box burst into golden brilliance, Chu Mu had many guesses and ideas in his mind, but he never expected that he would get this artifact. As a two-dimensional painter otaku, Chu Mu naturally read a lot of novels in his previous life, and the famous, mysterious master, is definitely on his favorite novel list. Origin Castle is the gold finger of the protagonist in this book, plus the physical manifestation of the power of the universe rule in the novel, one of the highest personal powers in the entire world's cultivation system. It is an artifact. It is also the source of strength. As introduced by Chu Mu's system Mall. Origin Castle is the step up to the sky in that world who wants to become a god through some way. It is an essential part to become the mysterious master of that world. This kind of thing is actually only S-level quality. There are 2 levels of SS level and SSS level on it. To be able to obtain such a blind box harvest is definitely far beyond Chu Mu's original expectations, but, while feeling joy in his heart, he also inevitably had some complicated emotions. After all, most people should not be able to accept the god-level rank represented by Origin Castle. It can make Chu Mu embark on the road to becoming a god, which is very special and indescribable with so many billions of points. If I have to describe it, it's the kind of Cthulhu feeling. Anyway, this can be regarded as my biggest reliance at the moment. Chu Mu is not worried that he will become a lunatic because of the power pollution represented by Origin Castle. At least with the support of the underlying rules of the system, his mind and soul will not be poisoned by any system items and abilities. All mythical goods will not bring any side effects to Chu Mu. If you ignore the indescribable road pointed to by Origin Castle, this artifact can definitely be regarded as a very powerful plugin. Anti-divination, anti-prediction, it can also be used as a firewall against rule forces, and it can also be used as a storage space, but I don't know if that thing is still in Origin Castle. If that thing is there, I will have several lives in the future that can be used as cards. Thinking of this, Chu Mu couldn't wait, he immediately opened it and tried to enter Origin Castle. Just for a split second. The air stopped flowing. The fine, sharp, illusory and crazy ravings began to echo in Chu Mu's ears. His vision blurred for a moment. Next moment, the stars move. A magnificent palace is reflected in Chu Mu's black eyes. The magnificent palace with no walls on all sides is suspended in the void. Chu Mu sat behind the long table in the middle of the palace. In front of him was an old and simple rectangular stone table. On both sides of the stone table were neat rows of stone benches. Gray stone pillars stood behind those stone benches, endless gray fog filled the entire space except this area, and the entire open hall was suspended in the gray fog-filled void. This is Origin Castle. To be precise, it is the area used for meetings in Origin Castle. In addition to the functions that Chu Mu has counted in detail before, Origin Castle can also be regarded as an online chat group place. This is not. Chu Mu raised his head and looked above the void, except for the shadow that flowed like a curtain. Chu Mu also saw crimson stars in the gray mist that flowed like water. Some of them are very huge, some are extremely small, some are hidden in the body, some float on the surface, and the light emitted by each star is also bright and dark. As a fan of Master of Mysteries, Chu Mu knows exactly what these star generations are. Every star represents a life, a lucky person who can be pulled into this palace. I don't know whether the people who are drawn in are from the mysterious world or from the Marvel Universe. Chu Mu perceived the aura of Origin Castle, and also found that this Origin Castle is somewhat different from the original Origin Castle. His Origin Castle. Obviously a version that has been, magically modified, by the system. Although there is not much difference in function and personality from the original Origin Castle, the group chat function of Origin Castle has encountered ruthless changes from the system. I don't know if it's because the system knows that Chu Mu doesn't have any spiritual power. Now Chu Mu wants to invite the things represented by the stars to enter this area, and maintain himself and the invitees in this area. All of them do not need to consume any spiritual power as support. He and the people he invited in can definitely gather here for a long time without paying any price. This seems like a good magic reform. But, wanting to invite those stars to enter Origin Castle is not without a price. At this point, Chu Mu once again saw the shadow of the Phil Money mobile game from his own system. Nima, I'm given 3 free seats at the beginning. If I want to open more seats, I need to spend myth points to unlock them. Chu Mu couldn't help but complain. He seems to have seen some mobile game routines where the first charge of 6 yuan will give away SSS cards. But fortunately, the system is still not as cheating as the marketing plans of those Phil Money mobile games. At least, it also gave away 3 free seats at Chu Mu, didn't it? Compared to Phil Money to unlock the subsequent seats, I would rather use the advertisement mode of, you are playing a pirated game. Chu Mu needs a full 100 myth points to unlock the 4th seat. In fact, it is not too expensive. But for Chu Mu now, this is tantamount to a number that daunts him. Definitely. Being able to invite 3 members to join here for free, Chu Mu doesn't need to unlock the 4th seat in this space if he wants to verify his guess just now. Isn't it the rhythm of the chat group of the heavens and the world? With some anticipation and apprehension, Chu Mu raised his hand, trying to touch the stars suspended in the gray mist, but when his finger just pointed to the surface of a certain star, suddenly there seemed to be invisible ripples coming from it. His body is blooming, making the stars selected by him shine like a flame burst. To this, Chu Mu didn't feel the slightest surprise, nor was he startled by fright. The process of inviting others to enter this area had already been sorted out silently in his heart. Therefore, after touching the first crimson star, his movements did not stop at all, and his fingers quickly picked 2 new stars from the sky full of stars. 3 free seats. No need for nothing. Use them all together. Swipe. The 3 stars all shone brightly after being touched by Chu Mu. Like a scarlet eruption. The degree of brightness overwhelms the brightness of other stars around them. I saw that the 3 stars quickly turned into meteors and fell straight into the palace where Chu Mu was. The 3 seats closest to Chu Mu, 2 on the left and 1 on the right, were all occupied by falling, shooting stars, bursting out bright red light that illuminated the entire area. After the bright, scarlet color on the 3 seats gradually faded, 3 figures with different images appeared on the 3 benches. Things happened so fast, it could be seen that the 3 beings, invited by Chu Mu, were a little dazed. A pretty little girl, and 2 men who are not as handsome as me, but not bad in appearance. Chu Mu looked at the people who appeared on the 3 seats, and was slightly disappointed. These people did not come from the mysterious world, nor did they come from the heavens and myriad worlds. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but Chu Mu could recognize the identities of the 3 people who were invited to enter here from their faces. They are all familiar characters in the Marvel Universe. And one of them. The identity was quite beyond Chu Emu's expectations. According to the information collected at the beginning of his time travel, this Marvel character shouldn't exist, right? Thanks for watching.